Hello everyone, I'm Tom Betts and I'm coordinating BFI Film Academy events in Wales for Chapter. You are about to watch a recording of a BFI Film Academy Lab session on going freelance and setting up your production company. BFI Film Academy Labs are all about helping 16 to 25-year-olds break into the screen industries. These monthly practical sessions are led by industry professionals with a focus on explaining the specifics of working in film and television and developing your skills to become the best screen creative you can be. The labs are programmed across 3 strands: storytelling, business of film, and career ladder. We hope you enjoyed today's session.
Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's session, going freelance and setting up your own production company. We've got a great group of panelists to talk about their experiences. So if we just start with a round of introductions, I'll kick off. I am Danielle Fahiya. I am an actress, writer, and a presenter. I'm also a freelancer. And last year, I produced and presented a BBC Sounds podcast called Matan, Injustice of a Hanged Man, which is still on BBC Sounds if anyone wants to check it out. Toby?
Hi, I'm Toby Cameron. I am a mainly producer, but also director based in Cardiff. I am the founder of On Par Productions. We make TV commercials, documentaries for television, short films, and other stuff. That's it.
And are you a freelancer as well, Toby?
No, I have worked as a freelancer previously, but I am, I'm a company, I run my company, I'm a company director, but I work with lots of freelancers and have worked as a freelancer and sort of figured out the ways in which I didn't like being treated. So when I'm working with freelancers, I make a particular effort to, make sure they're paid well, treated well, and looked after.
Great. Dani?
Hi everyone, my name is Dani and I'm a freelance character animator. I've been working in the UK animation industry for about 15 years. I think 9 of those as a freelancer, so as like a solo operative, good for hire. I've worked as a CG animator in games. I've worked as a 2D hand-drawn animator for Christmas specials. I've worked on my most recent project, which was so exciting, was the Star Wars Visions for Aardman Animations. I was a CG character right here from my living room in Riddervelin. And I'm currently working on a 2D Sesame Street production called The Elmo Show.
Great, thank you. And Daniel?
Hi, I'm Daniel J. Harris. So I'm the managing director at Focus Shift Films and also the commercial director at EatSleep Media. So I was a freelancer working in the industry and I set up my own company to try and create some of my own opportunities. That was Focus Shift Films, and then set up EatSleep Media with a couple of like-minded people. We've built that team to be up to 18 people over the last couple of months. We've been nominated for RTS Cymru Awards. We've won the Wales Business Awards Digital Business of the Year. And we kind of create a lot of social media content for the Welsh FA, Sport Wales. We've also made our first feature film last year called Tosh, which is now available on Amazon Prime.
Great, thank you. So Dani, I'm going to start with you. 9 years ago, you said that you've been working now as a freelancer. At what point did you get to 9 years ago that made you decide to take that jump really and do it full time?
I was forced into it, and I'm so glad that happened and how it did and when it did. So I was working for a studio and a lot of TV production is kind of fixed term based, so there's not really much longevity at any one studio anyway, and I'd done quite a lot of years leapfrogging from one studio to the next, and it was just the end of a project and the studio I was currently with said, "We really like you, we don't want you to go anywhere, but we can't keep you." But we've got this little project that you'd be perfect for, but you need to be freelance. You need to invoice us instead of being on our payroll. And I was like, oh, okay, what does that mean? Google that quick. I said yes, obviously, and then I thought I'll learn that later. And then that project ended up only being something like 6 weeks long. So I sent 6 invoices, 1 every week, and I felt really grown up and cool. And then after that, because of the nature of animation production, and there was always these little gaps that always made me like so anxious, I was like, oh no, now I'm set up as a freelancer. Now I can look after myself, and now I'm my own boss, girl boss vibes. And I've never gone back. So some studios that I do work for as a freelancer will try to insist that you join their payroll or be PAYE on certain projects, and I don't like it anymore. I like being freelance, so I have to have a little fight sometimes, but it's been so empowering, and it's enabled me to keep, I mean, I never have holidays though. That's one of the bad things, but like, it's enabled me to keep completely busy even in those times when there are no big projects at the big studios. But then I'm also able to work at the big studios too. So yeah, it was forced, but it worked out perfect.
You've got that great flexibility, and as you say, you know, I resonate with that as well. It is empowering, actually, you know, being able to, you know, pick and choose the work that you want to do. So thank you for that. And Toby, you said in the past that you started off working as a freelancer, and now you work with freelancers as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I actually started up my company straight from uni, but we mainly did, for the first like decade, you know, lots of mixtures of music videos, corporate films, but I wasn't really satisfied with the work. I got the opportunity to go and work as a freelance documentary filmmaker via a BBC Wales director scheme. And I felt it was quite nice to be able to step away from the company for a little bit. I kind of left it to run with some guys that worked there. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it at first. But then after a while, I kind of began to kind of miss kind of being a bit more in control over the projects that I did. And equally, I think I've had great experiences working as a freelancer. Please don't put people off, but somebody involved in the project probably didn't make it the best, most inviting, you know, friendly place to be working. So when I decided to go back and start working from Par, I kind of took that with me, thinking, all right, when I work with freelancers and when I use freelancers, I'm going to make sure that, you know, they're paid properly, and they're treated well, and they're not, you know, they're not, you know, they're not just a gun for hire. You know, there's someone to be respected, to be looked after, to be, you know, maybe they're not an employee as such, but to be looked after, you know, as well as I would look after an employee. And it stood me really well. We have a great, you know, network of freelancers that we work with. They always tell us how well we look after them, and how they like working with us, how we're well organized. And actually that kind of feedback around networks then goes around to potential clients and other people, and then you get other people getting in touch wanting to work with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And you operate quite flexible working patterns as well, the 4-day working week, and you've got like a mental health policy as well. Yeah,
we're very much big believers on Par that, you know, we want to work hard, we want to get work done, but that shouldn't have a huge impact on our mental health, our physical health. So we make sure to, you know, not overwork people. Obviously, when you're shooting, sometimes you do have to work slightly longer days, as other freelancers that work on shoots will probably explain. But, you know, day in, day out in the office and editing, we like to try and keep things to like 8-9 hours, and give people 3 days off at the weekend, which it works mostly, and it means that we have like a really great working environment, and I feel like the guys that work here, you know, really genuinely love working here, you know, and equally 3 of the other guys that work at the company, I gave them a few shares a few years ago when I did go off to be a freelancer, to kind of make them feel like they were, you know, so they felt, you know, ownership, and that they felt, you know, that they felt that if they worked hard and they put in the time, that they would reap the benefits. So, you know, I think unfortunately not all companies at the moment are like that, but, you know, we're kind of being quite open and talking about that on social media platforms, so in the hope that other companies do go that way. And I do feel like it is going that way in the long term.
Great. And you say that you set up your company pretty much straight out of uni. Was that just an instinctual thing that you knew you wanted to do? I
didn't feel like I would get a job anywhere else. I just didn't feel confident following uni that I would. Maybe I was scared, to be honest, of becoming a freelancer. Maybe I didn't have, you know, and I didn't feel like anyone would give me a job. So the next best thing was just go and start up your own company. You know, now looking it back at that is a bit crazy that I just have that, I don't know, not inner confidence, but, you know, maybe it was naivety, you know, that like, oh, I'll just go and do it this way. But, you know, I wouldn't have changed things. I sometimes think now, what would I do if I didn't run my own company, if something happened to it? And I just keep coming back to, I'd probably just start another company, you know, like, because I don't think it is a million ways away from freelancing. Running a company is like, you're kind of in control of your own destiny. You can pick and choose what you do to a point. It's just so that I have people that I work with, you know, that are on the payroll, but I try my best to not treat them as freelancers as such, but, you know, to give them the, you know, the space, the respect and the integrity that they deserve. So, you know.
Great, thank you. And Danielle, what was your experience? Have you worked as a freelancer as well?
Yeah, it's been years and years as a freelancer in a number of different roles across the industry. I've worked as an AD, I've worked in locations, I've done a variety of jobs. And like similar to Toby, I think in terms of you're kind of looking at the industry and you're looking at the jobs you want to do, and you're looking at like the requirements for some of those jobs, and then applying for stuff at the BBC and not getting opportunities. And it was kind of like, start my own business and try and create my own opportunities and find my own path. Like, so they say, oh, you need X amount of years in order to do this, and we're looking for someone highly experienced with that. And kind of looked at it, was a bit like, I reckon I could do that, but no one's going to give me the opportunity. But if I create those opportunities myself and show that I can do it, then I can find more opportunities. So yeah, I think having your own company gives you a certain level of creative freedom and flexibility. And yeah, I just kind of looked at the system and looked at how you were meant to navigate it and thought, oh, sod that, I'm going to carve my own path through this. I can't spend years and years kind of doing that to get to there. I'm going to try and find my own way through it.
Absolutely. And I think instinctively as creators, we like to carve our own way anyway. That's probably, certainly for me, I think why I chose to do what I do is because I like to be in control of my own destiny and create my own path. I guess, what was your first sort of formative steps in setting up a company, Danielle?
Good question. I'd worked at a couple of other kind of agencies for different people, kind of small businesses, and saw kind of how they were run. And I took advice from someone I knew on how to set up a company. And it's kind of like, think of a name, register it with company's house, and figure out the rest from there. So you go, right, I've got a company. How do I kind of promote this company? How do I find opportunities for this company? How do I invoice from this company? And then you've got to find an accountant, and the accountant says, well, that money comes in isn't yours, mind. You've got to keep some for this and some for that. And you go, oh, right, okay. I thought it's my company, it's my money, and no, it doesn't work that way. So you just kind of navigate that pathway and kind of figure out how these things work. So yeah, the first port of call is think of a name and register on company's house, pay 12 quid, and you're on the register sort of thing. And then the rest of it is figuring stuff out as you go, making mistakes, learning from other people, adjusting and evolving as you go. And yeah, they kind of gone from that name and that company's house number through to, do you know what I mean, turnover and accounts and staff and company policies and all sorts of other things kind of years down the line.
And it takes years, doesn't it, really? Like you said, you know, the first step, you know, is the big step, but actually, you know, all of that you can learn along the way.
Yeah, you don't have to be some business genius. You've got to have a lot of passion for what you do. You've got to be willing to kind of take the knocks, learn, grow, and evolve, because it is not easy to kind of run a company in the creative industries, the kind of the ebb and the flow of work and trying to create a sustainable business can be difficult when you're starting out and you don't have a network and you don't have a brand and you don't have a set of clients. But if you've got the heart, if you've got the belief in yourself and you've got the determination to make it work, they're the key factors. You don't need an MBA. Do you know what I mean? You don't need any sort of business degree. You need resilience, I'd say, is the number one factor to building a sustainable business. Absolutely.
And Dani, what was your sort of, in terms of, you know, when you were 16 to 25, you know, had you always wanted to be an animator? What was your sort of first steps in realizing your dream?
I cannot remember a time when I didn't want to be an animator. It came pretty early on, probably in childhood, watching Saturday morning cartoons. I think every animator has that background, that backstory. Yeah, so I knew that I would have to do all the art subjects, get myself into an art university, get an animation degree, and then I'll flop into a job. That was my plan. Back then, I didn't. I thought like computers were the future back then, and I was like, oh, CG animation. I was looking for universities that did computer animation, so that's what I entered the industry with. But that is not what I do today. So it's interesting. My career has had like, it's almost like a circle back to childhood where I was like, actually, I was happiest lying on the carpet drawing with pencils, and now I get to be like a hand-drawn animator as well, which took ages to cross over. Like even in animation, there's like subsectors. So yeah, a lot of training. Never ever stop training as a freelancer. There's always something new to learn and somewhere else I want to go.
Great. Every day's a school day.
Yeah.
And Toby, how about for you? Is it something that you'd always wanted to do? What were you thinking in your head at age 16?
Yeah, I always wanted to be a storyteller, and then I kind of got a bit older and I was like, oh, I really like a friend, and my stepbrother really got me. I was already into film, but really heavily got me into film. So then I was like, all right, I'll be a screenwriter, and then got more interested in the visual side of it. And then I was like, I'll be a director. So I knew from quite a young age that I wanted to be involved with film. And then it was a case of going to college, doing film, and then getting into the right university. I hadn't planned. I ended up studying documentary film at Newport Film School, which is now USW, University of South Wales. And I was just really lucky to have a really inspirational. I just wrote a blog post actually about a really inspirational university tutor that I had, who just got me really excited for film. Did some really inspiring talks, made me believe that I could do it, even though I wasn't always the best student. He would agree that. I spent quite a lot of time having fun at university, meeting lots of people, living my life. But, equally, he never kind of gave up on me. And I managed to, make a good graduation film, make a good dissertation. And that kind of gave me the confidence to, maybe not even the confidence, the will to keep going and to keep trying. And like I said, just thought, okay, I'll start a company, and I've just never really, I wouldn't say I've always been the best, but I've always just put in the effort and not really ever given up. I've just tried to learn from my mistakes and just to keep going and to keep getting better and to keep growing. Like I said, I wasn't really satisfied with the work we were doing after 10 years, and it took me a while to go off and come back. And now I'm really happy with the level of work we're doing and the types of projects that we're working within, and if I could see where, like when I started, that I would be in this position now and making the sort of stuff I am, I'd be really amazed. But, it didn't happen overnight. It was a slog of keeping going, but I just couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. Like I just couldn't, so there wasn't any option but just to keep going and keep trying and, keep getting better at your craft and, putting in the effort and going out and meeting people and saying hello to people and showing your work with people. I was very, like stuff like that, like Daniel was saying, it's like, and it's the same for freelancing. I hate the word hustling, but you know what I mean? Like we have to go out and you have to knock on doors and you have to tell people who you are and you need to show your work. And, don't have to do that in like, hey, can I have a job kind of way, but I've just spent the last, 6 days at a film festival in Sheffield, just meeting people and talking to people about projects, with the hope that they might lead on to other bits of work. So what's my point? My point being, it is really hard, but I think there's a reason why it's hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But if you keep working and you keep putting in the effort and you keep learning from your mistakes, you can get there, and you can either end up being the most successful, most amazing freelancer, or you can end up running your own company,
Yeah. And like Daniel said, it's about having that resilience, isn't it? And I think what does sustain you is having the passion and waking up every day and loving it. I think the day you don't love it is the day you may need to reconsider. I think that's one of the key things. And I wondered if you, I guess, Dani, well, I'll start with you. Did you ever have a day job? Did you ever do anything else on the side?
Yeah, there was actually oh, this is embarrassing. Like right at the beginning, I worked on something mega. Like my first job was Grand Theft Auto, and I was an animator on that. And I thought I'd made it. I was like, oh, I'm sorted for life now. And then there was a huge dry spell in the UK of CG animation, and that's what I was trained in. I'd spent the last 3 years learning Maya, learning 3ds Max, and there was no other games being made. And then this like period where there was just game studio after game studio shutting down. And I was panicking because I was like, that's where my experience currently is. I was going to capitalize on that and jump to the next big thing. And I ended up working in a cinema for a year. It's like fairly a film adjacent. Absolutely loved it. But I constantly trying to get out of it. Like there's not a single week where I didn't contact some studio somewhere, and I had some extremely embarrassing interviews during that year, different places, until I did finally get then my next job, which after that it was I think it's a period of about a year, and then I got back into the industry again, and then it's been plain sailing since. And then with the freelance as well, that's sort of helped me keep me out of the cinema.
Yeah. No, I can definitely resonate with that, because I don't think it's spoken about a lot, is it really? I think sometimes there's a little bit of a stigma attached to having to do something else, and I think sometimes that happens, and you just have to kind of go with the flow. You've got bills to pay, and I think especially when you're starting off as well, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It takes time building up clients, people you can go back to for work. So yeah, no,
I mentor quite a lot as well. So I get like people who are fresh from university or still in university, and I always tell them, like, you're still an animator, even though you might be working in a supermarket right now. Like, just you're still the thing you want to be. You're just working somewhere else right now to keep yourself alive.
I think that's a really good point. Like, I remember making a method in my life to go, you're a filmmaker, and I would just say I'm a filmmaker. And I know it sounds silly, and I don't necessarily believe in the whole like positive mental attitude to just keep telling yourself that, but well, actually, maybe I do. That sometimes you do need to just keep reminding you these things, and or if you make mistakes, remind yourself, hey, mistakes happen, but what have I learned from this? And I think, that's a really good point, Dani. It's like, you are this, you are that, just because you're doing something else.
I met one of my animation heroes working in the cinema. They had like a big film premiere there, and it was Nick Park. And I was like, I'm not actually a waitress. I'm an animator. I told everyone, like, I don't really work in a cinema. I'm an animator, even though I was in the uniform with the hat.
And Daniel, how about you?
Well, when I kind of first started out, when I was studying for my degree, I worked at the Carphone warehouse as a salesman. So I learned plenty of sales techniques that come in very handy now as a producer. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of understanding your audience and kind of figuring out what they want and how you can give them what they want. The same tools I developed for selling mobile phones, I use now whilst pitching to sales agents, distributors, commissioners. Who are they? What do they want? What are they looking for? What have I got that I can give them that fits that? And kind of trying to solve that problem to get the company work. So I kind of worked in sales, and like Dani and Toby were saying, when you're kind of starting out, you might have to jump between kind of a normal job and the job you want. I think as a working class filmmaker, you've got to have something else, because the job could be a couple of days and then nothing for a couple of weeks. It could be a couple of months and then nothing for a couple of months. You've got to make sure that you're sustaining yourself, looking after yourself, feeding yourself across that period, and understand that the first year or two might be a little bit in and out of the business, but every job you do, you learn something, you meet new people, and it's a networking industry. So if you work on one job with 20 people, 10 of them might go on to the next job, the other 10 might go off onto 10 different jobs, and then they might say, oh, I worked with someone really good on the last project, you should give them a shout. So you've got to kind of take any job in the industry you can, even if it's not in the role that you kind of want to go for. Like, I meet a lot of young filmmakers, they're like, oh, I'm going to be a director. I'm like, okay, but you haven't directed anything. Yeah. Why don't you get a job as a runner or a boom op or in the production team? Oh, I want to be a director. I'm like, so does half the industry. But if you get into the industry and you're making money and you're building your network and you're proving that you've got the skills and the attributes to be successful, you're hardworking, you're enthusiastic, you're a problem solver, stuff like that, you will build that network, you will build those opportunities, and you can grow towards that role of being a director. So yeah, take any job you can in the industry, and you never know where it might lead you, even if it's not the ideal job for you.
Yeah, and there's lots of transferable skills, even from being a runner and right up the ladder. So it all feeds into what you want to do and your sort of your dream ambition. Yeah,
and I think like when I left film school, I left there having never been on a proper film set. Like I think the film schools now make sure you get work experience and stuff like that. I'd never been on a proper film set, so didn't actually know how those things operated. Kind of, you knew what a director did, and you knew what sound recordist did, you knew what the cinematographer did, but there's a whole host of jobs that you never knew existed. EIT and kind of the people that run Film Village, Video Village, and catering and locations and all these other things where you didn't know those jobs existed, because you're not kind of taught about them as kind of one of the pillars of the industry on your film course. And you can find jobs in those, like if you worked in a restaurant, you might be able to work in catering. You work in catering, you meet other people, and you can transfer across then. So yeah, there's a whole host of opportunities that you don't realize are there whilst you're in film school, because I want to be a writer, I want to be a director, I want to be a DOP. But the more you understand about the entire process and everyone's job, the better equipped you are for success in the industry, because everyone's role is interlinked on a film set. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's got a very specific role, very specific things they do in a very specific order, and there's so many working parts that all fit together. If you understand different departments and different roles and how they all work, it allows you to do your job a little bit better, because you have an understanding of the other pieces in the machine. So take any job you can, learn about that department, meet people from that department, learn what other departments do, and then you can start to figure out, hang on, I might be good at that, or I've met someone that might be able to give me an opportunity there.
Definitely. Thank you. Now, we're not allowed to give legal advice, and neither should we. However, what was your experience being working, dealing with lawyers and accountants and the sort of business side of matters, Toby?
Oh, I still haven't got a lawyer. I think I found my accountant. I was like, new accountant who likes, small new businesses, and I found him, and then he's been my accountant ever since. But went off recommendations and stuff like that. Just kind of get your head around it. And I think all these things seem really intimidating, and I can understand where why they are. But just don't be afraid to ask, and find out, and just be honest about what you don't know and what you do know. I think it's really refreshing when some people just aren't afraid to say, oh, I don't understand that, can you explain that to me? Because I think people are just used to just pretending that they do, and I've always been quite open about what I do and I don't know. And going off recommendations, if I need something specific, I'll say to someone else within the industry or the business, like, I need this, would you recommend anyone? Or because generally that's how it works. I was just looking at the questions, and somebody was like, how do you find your freelancers? It's like, it's recommendations most of the time. That's how it happens. And it's like, that might seem, oh, well, how do I get the first step in, and how do I get but it's the first step's often the hardest. But it's like, once you start, working with people recommend people, and people recommend people. It's like, oh, I need this and I need that. And, if you turn up on time and, you work hard, and, you're clearly learning and putting in the effort, you will get noticed and you will get sort of passed around. Doesn't quite answer your question, but how do I think it's just, I work it out as I go on. I'm a problem solver. And when I have a problem in front of me, be it I need a solicitor or I need this, my problem solving brain kicks in. I think, who can I talk to? Where can I go to? Who can give me the information that I need to be able to, fill that gap or fill that role that I need help with? Yeah.
We don't need to know, that's why you have lawyers and accountants. And it's like you said, reaching out to people as you go along. Dani, what's your experience been like?
I've mostly done it all myself. But I do currently have an accountant, just because I went through the process of buying a house and finding out the hard way that not all money it's the same money. So I needed someone to help me through that process and make sure that I was streamlined as possible. And it was really helpful because, just like you said, Toby, you can say, I don't know what that means. Could you explain that to me again? I didn't go to accountant school. So I did learn a whole heap just going through the process of just having one for a couple of years. And now I can help others because, like, through my mentoring, I can also say, like, I know how it works a little bit better now. So now I can help you with yours. And I've even had people, we just go through my self-assessment every year just to show them, like, it's nothing scary, it just looks scary. There's loads of hints and tips on the forum. You can Google everything. You can ask people, what does this mean? Most of it's irrelevant. So as a freelancer, it's just usually like, this is what I've earned and this is what I've taken off as expenses. Those two things are all I really need to know. Now, in my career, there's also a tiny bit of PAYE, and that's what I meant about money's not the same money. So some companies or some studios will insist that you are paid PAYE, and I've seen a couple of questions in the box about what's the difference, and that just means that you are paid through you get a wage slip every month, and your tax is already taken away as deductions, and everything's worked out, and you're just like, yay, my money. And then the other way is invoicing for your time based on whatever you've agreed for that job, and then they pay you the full amount, and you then have to go and sort of pay your own tax at the end of the year. And it is really simple. It just does not feel that way at first.
It can feel quite daunting, can't it, at first?
Yeah.
I think it's amazing along the way what you learn, you know, like I am an accountant, but I know now how to look at my accountancy software and to understand it, because I need to know about cash flow. And it's like, that would seem terrible. I don't remember, one day I went, I'm going to learn cash flow. I just kind of pick it up as you go along. Or, how do I invoice people, or how do I set up PAYE, and how do I do all these things? Like, it's like, that's what I mean to say. It's like, it's if you see the big thing and you think, bloody hell, that's so much stuff to have to learn and do. It's just like, you won't, you'll get a problem and that will come up, or something you need to fix or learn, and then you go off and you learn it, and then you kind of implement it, and it's not like every day, until you're employing someone, you won't have to worry about PAYE necessarily, but it's incredible when you look back and how far you've come and where you are now, and like how many transferable skills actually you have from just being a freelancer or running your own business.
Definitely. And Danielle, have you had an experience with any lawyers or for agreements and film contracts?
Yes, yeah. So produced my first feature film last year, and the level of paperwork involved in delivering a feature film is just like another level again. So there was, as part of that process, there was raising money, understanding UK film tax credits, understanding how to lend money against UK film tax credits and lend money against an advance from a sales agent, and that money is expensive money. So if someone promises you 100 grand as an advance, but you only get that 100 grand once you have made the film and spent whatever the budget is, you've got to go and lend money against that. And then there's different agreements you need with solicitors for all these different things. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in terms of dealing with the accountants and the solicitors for putting together a feature film, because I'd never done it before. And it just seems like a whole host of jargon and numbers and things that you don't understand. That when a solicitor sends you anything, it's usually like really kind of long-winded. Yeah. But like Toby said, I make sure I ask as many questions as I can, and you're like, acting like the dumbest person in the room is not a bad thing when you say to a solicitor, so let me just recap, you are saying this, which means I can do that and I can't do that, is that right, in layman's terms? And they will either say yes, no, or they'll kind of explain it to you differently. And I do exactly the same thing with my accountant. So you're saying that money is there, but you're saying this and this and this. Does that mean I have that much money? And I go, yes, no, or kind of. So yeah, never be afraid to ask a question and act like the dumbest person in the room, because like if you get into legal issues or you get into financial issues, they can be difficult to get out of. But if you ask the right questions and you are just honest on the way in, and you're saying, right, so someone sends you a contract and you send it to a solicitor, like someone sent me this contract. What does this mean? Because it's 35 pages and all I was doing was lending a little bit of money, or all I was doing was making sure the sales agent sells my film. What on earth is all this? And then your solicitor can go, what they're saying is this, 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 and this. So I think for me, the first thing I did when I started a business was get an accountant, someone that understands small businesses, someone that's happy to answer any number of questions without charging you per question, someone that understands kind of your learning and is happy to kind of guide you. That was important. And then similar sort of thing with the solicitor. Needing a solicitor came fairly like late in the process. It's only when you get into the bigger projects and you're looking at all sorts of legal terms with what you're creating and what the rights are and who is then going to go and promote that film, sell that film for you. But again, having an accountant, we go, look, I'm new to this and I know nothing, so you are going to have to explain this to me in layman's terms and I can ask you questions. That solicitor says, yeah, no problem. We deal with companies like yours all the time. We work in this industry, so we understand the kind of the ins and the outs of it, no problem. Then they will help you through it. An accountant is more likely to give you little bits of advice and not charge you. A solicitor is more likely to charge you for every email, every phone call, every meeting, and they can be pretty spicy numbers.
And I'm going through that myself at the moment, and I think it's, you know, take your time in looking for the right solicitor. Obviously, there's different specialisms. You know, look for the right solicitor who deals with, you know, with creative industry, media industries, because it can be very expensive.
And there's different, like a lawyer is not a lawyer, like there's different types of money, there's different types of law, media law compared to property law compared to, do you know what I mean? So having someone that specializes in it, and I think if you've got a mentor in the industry or someone you know that's a bit further down the line than you in their kind of career, and you just ask them for advice. So when you made your feature film, what was the lawyer you used? Would you recommend them? Who's your accountant? Would you recommend them? And more often than not, people are more than happy to say, I use so-and-so, yes, they were good, or I use so-and-so, I wouldn't use them, but I'm now using someone else and I think they're good. So yeah, just ask those people that are a little bit further down the line in terms of their career or their business than you, and they'll be happy to make a recommendation.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, so we've talked about the sort of formative steps of operating as a freelancer and having your own production company. We're going to move on to the kind of, you know, actually sustaining the work and trying to get the work first and then sustaining it. So in terms of kind of interviewing and pitching for gigs, Dani, how has that been for you as a freelancer?
With animation, like everything takes so long, but I normally get like a really good run with a really small selection of people, and we all make those like really tight bonds over getting a project over the line. And if you looked at my CV, that like the same companies roll around, like there's like 3 companies that I just tend to ping pong between. I've always tried to attend as many animation festivals as I can, and I will always try and like have an email list of companies that I just introduce myself to or fire off an email to, just to see if anyone's hiring. There's not been, I'm in a stage of my career now where I would just have to put a post out on LinkedIn saying I'm available from January, and that will get me my next gig somehow, whether it's through someone else or someone sharing it or someone who knows somewhere, or I already know them.
And when you first started, what was it like? Obviously now you can put a post out and you can get a great response.
Yeah.
But in the sort of early days,
Terrifying.
What was that like?
I remember walking out to a studio on foot and delivering a showreel on a CD, and it went nowhere. And I thought, oh no, this is awful. What am I going to do? It's a lot of it back in the early days, and like even now, I think it's mindset rather than what I'm actually doing. What I'm doing has always been the same. I'm contacting people, letting them know I'm available, or turning up to an event and speaking to as many people as possible and telling them what I can do. It's just about keeping my pecker up during all that, just in case something takes a little bit longer. Or I'm quite proactive in that I would make my own animations constantly. So anything I could do. Like if I had a free day or a free week, or it was looking like a free month and I was panicking, it's like, fine, switch focus, make something new, put that out on social media or what have you. Then you've got a reason to contact a company and say, I've made a new thing, have a look, or tag a load of people in, or what have you. Send that to festivals. Just turn up to festivals and show people on your phone. So it seemed like it was more about how I dealt with the empty spaces mentally than it was about what I actually did. It's hard to relate back to little me now. I can't remember. I know it was frightening, but I always did put my head down and do something proactive about it. And that's paid off now. So like eventually it does build momentum. It's like a snowball. The more people you know, the more gigs you get, the more gigs you do successfully, suddenly you're bankable. Everyone else wants a piece. And I'm in that sweet spot now where it's like, be a little bit choosy. I didn't think I would ever get there.
Good place to be.
Yeah.
And Toby, obviously having your own production company, the process of, taking an idea from, pitching an idea. I mean, what's that like? And how is that for you?
Whoa, big question. Yeah, I love nothing more than like conceptually and coming up with an idea, developing it, pitching it, getting the go ahead to go and do it, doing it, making it, and looking back on it and thinking, wow, look, we just that has come from, like nowhere. I think what I've realized only really in the last few years, which I maybe didn't do, is about putting that time in before the shoot, before the pitch, developing the idea and putting the time into creative is really, really important. One, it will help you win the job, but two, it means when you get round to doing the job, a lot of the, though it will change, obviously, when other people become involved, it means that the final product as such, because often, not all the time, well, even if it's a broadcast doc, it's a product, you're creating something for someone, that's paying you to do it. It will mean that thing is better for it, like there's nothing worse than when we get a job and we've got like a week to like do the development, do the creative, and then get it around and shoot it. The thing that will suffer will be the final, film because of that. Does that make sense?
Yes. And Daniel, for you, we've got about 2 minutes to answer this question, but because we've got lots and lots of great questions, I'm sure, coming through on the chat. But what's it been like for you in terms of getting the gigs and going out for them?
Similar to Dani, where you kind of like, if you're creating stuff and you're kind of proactive and doing things, the more you've created, the more things you've got to talk about, the more things you've got to show people. We got to say in EatSleep Media, if you build it, they will come, as long as it's not shit. So it's like a slight variation on the classic kind of film slogan, but yeah, it's trying to do stuff, trying to create stuff, trying to get some momentum. And if you're doing stuff and you're busy, you look more attractive to people. Like our film Tosh was turned down by the BBC 3 times, turned down by BT Sport twice. We just started filming it. So when we're filming it, we're getting these interviews and we're snipping bits out. Then the sales agent and the other people were interested and want to be a part of it. If you're sat around doing nothing, you don't look anywhere near as attractive as if you're, oh, we got this and we're shooting that and we're making this. We had a bit of downtime, so we made a music video. We've been working on this script. We've been chatting to these people. The busier you look, the more interesting you are to people.
Great. Brilliant. Right. So we're going to move on to some questions. They just being brought to me now. Great. Wow, we do have a lot here. Okay, right. So first question, would you say that a degree is necessary for this industry?
No.
No, you can learn on the job with a lot of jobs. It depends what you want to do. You can like go into film school and learning stuff can be useful. It depends how you learn. Different people learn different ways. So it can depend, but it's not absolutely necessary. Absolutely not.
No, I think it's a helpful place to go and learn and play with, and learn your craft. And I did it and I loved it and I wouldn't have changed that. But again, it was a lot cheaper to go to university when I was. But equally, and it is a good place to network and meet people. But, you know, I've just started working, mentoring a guy that just finished college, you know, he's 18 and he's like, I'm not going to uni. I'm going to learn, I'm going to work. And that's the way that I'm going to do it, you know, and neither way is wrong, you know, and I think as long as you're committed to learning and honing your craft and you can start to try and find work, you're getting paid to go to uni rather than paying to go to uni, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you've got to find the sort of best learning tool for you, because, you know, everyone's brains work differently, and sort of, you know, being in a lecture theatre, being told something rather than being sort of practical and on the job isn't the best way of learning. Okay, Dani, do you want to?
Yeah, I would say for animation, self-practice, and there's online courses as well that would have more clout these days, I feel, than a university degree. If there was anything that you felt that you were missing in your arsenal of tools, like a software, there are so many ways to teach yourself software now. That if you were really interested in being an animator and you, like me, constantly draw and constantly draw in your sketchbook, that can get you a job anyway these days. Like, it's all about that, it's all about your show reel. So if you were just making work yourself and you had enough to cut a show reel and you can send that to a studio and a studio can see that you can move things with emotion, that I don't think people look at CVs as much anymore.
No, if I you know, I just hired recently, and I wasn't looking at whether people had a degree or not. You know, it wasn't a hands-on role. I was just more looking at their previous, like, where they'd worked or previous things they'd made, engaging from that, you know, like whether they would be a good fit and they would work here, you know. Like, I would still pay attention if they had a degree from like a great university, but it wouldn't win the job for me, you know. Like, I wouldn't give it to someone just because they had a degree from, I don't know, NFT, you know. It might be different if you're trying to work specifically within TV or something, you know, like people might go, oh, NFT, but I think it's more about your work, you know, and what you've done previously. That's what would get me excited and interested in a person.
I think also, like, me and Toby went to the same film school kind of about a similar time, I think, when cameras were massive and expensive. And so you had someone else's equipment, someone else's lights, and someone else's insurance to go out and play with stuff. Whereas today, you can buy a camera for like £1,000 that's got a half decent lens on it and a decent microphone. You can go make a film. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can make a film on your iPhone. So it's not the same as it was kind of 15, 20 years ago when cameras were massively expensive, or there was film and then you had to get it processed. So you can go out and just YouTube and learn and shoot stuff.
Ironically, I watched a featured documentary at the weekend by my university tutor that he shot on and edited all on his own, you know, and he using an iPhone. All right, he had years of experience before, but it was beautiful, you know. It was beautifully shot, it was beautifully edited, you know. It was just stuff on his iPhone and some music, library music, some very good library music, and his voiceover. And it was the most amazing film ever. It blew me away, you know. And it was his talent, you know, it was his experience and the work that he'd done before that kind of made that film incredible.
There was recently, do you know the new Spider-Man movie, the Into the Multiverse, Spider-Verse? There was a 14-year-old kid who did some Lego animation for it because that's what he does at home and puts it on YouTube.
Brilliant.
A 14-year-old kid hasn't been to uni, and he's probably better than me. Amazing.
That's so empowering, isn't it? It's like what you said
Yeah.
right back at the beginning. Great, thank you guys. So the next question we have is, how would you suggest bridging the gap between university, using the random skills you've gained and getting the jobs you would like?
Are we talking just any university course rather than a film course, or?
I think we should probably go, let's try a film course.
So how you use the skills to bridge the gap and get into the industry?
Yes.
Looking for those entry-level roles, do you mean kind of runner, production assistant, stuff like that, I think, where you can get in there at the ground level and you can learn as you go, I suppose. If you are looking to take your skills you developed as a director and go straight into TV and film as a director, that's a very, very difficult step. So yeah, take a job kind of the bottom of the pile, so to speak, and get your foot in the door and network and learn.
Great.
Just make stuff. I think that's what we've all kind of saying. It's like the more you make stuff, the better, because not only does you can post it and go, look what I've done. You're learning. You're literally learning. It's, you know, I don't want to say it's free learning, because you do need like even a phone or something to do it. But, you know, you are like, people always say to me, oh, how do I get to know filmmakers in Cardiff? I was like, go and make stuff, go to filmmaking groups. Oh, can I help you out with your film? You can help me with your film. And you'll kind of, you know, that is a way to, if you're very early on, maybe to get a bit of like directing, you know, you're not going to be doing it on a big set, like, you know, like that Daniel's saying. It's like, but then that way you can do it. And then equally, you can be applying for the production assistant runnering jobs. And the fact that you're making stuff on the side, I think is going to help you over somebody that's just like not doing that as such, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's like research says you need to spend 10,000 hours doing something in order to be an expert. So the more time you spend on your craft, the better. Like when I come out of film school and I started kind of making my own stuff, I kind of had that mindset. It's like if you spend 1 day a week working as a filmmaker, then it'll take you X amount of time to go those 10,000 hours. If I work 7 days a week as a filmmaker, and some of them is working in production, and some of those days is shooting and editing my own stuff, I will get to that 10,000 hours quicker. And then I will kind of accelerate my career. So spend as many hours as you can doing, learning, analyzing what other people are doing, networking, spend as much time as you can living and breathing it, and you will become a filmmaker. Like Toby said, you go out there and go, I'm a filmmaker and this is what I do. And you spend all your time kind of learning it and practicing it. That's the best way to get ahead.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to say that, you know, rejection is also part of learning and becoming a filmmaker as well. You learn from all the rejection. So yeah, don't be afraid of that. Embrace it.
Yeah, I just wrote a blog post about that, you know, just like I had to, people applying for jobs and I had to tell like 100 people you don't have a job. And I felt guilty for a bit. And I thought, no, I was like, this is, you know, I get told no, you know, like I'm still, people might go, oh, people say yes to you all the time. No, most of the time when I'm asking somebody for, you know, like I'm pitching a program or I'm going for a job, like I'm pitching for a job or I'm asking for funding, all these things, a vast majority of the time, it's a no. But obviously as you get better at it and you get more experience, you know, it starts to level out a little bit, but it's still majority no. And I feel like the quicker, and it took me years to get used to it, but the quicker that you can just get used to rejection. I'm not saying you're not going to be upset about it or whatever, but it's more that you can sort of dust yourself off and think, okay, what can I do better next time that will help me? How can I learn? You know, rather than sitting going, oh, rubbish, I didn't get this money. Like the amount of people are complaining that they don't get, you know, funding for things and stuff like that. It's like, why not? Why didn't you get that funding? What can you do next time on that application that will mean that you will get it? You know, are you asking for feedback?
And I think that the most important step to success is failure. The more times you fail, the more times you learn. You learn a hell of a lot more from failure than you do from success. And every time you fail, you learn something, you grow, you evolve. And what we try and do with some of our kind of younger members of staff is provide a safe space for failure. Try this, see how you get on, see if you can make this work, try and shoot this, try and edit that, try and figure this out, and then provide the support around them so they can fail in a safe space. They can learn from that failure and then they grow. So you've got to, don't be afraid to fail. That's
great. Fail in a safe space. I love that. And use that, borrowing it. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. The next question, how did you get new clients when you started with only a few contacts? Is there any kind of advertising you'd recommend?
Doing stuff for free is the best advert. Doing lots of stuff for free at the start. Kind of do a bit for them, show them what you can do. If they want any more, they come back, but then you can also show that to somebody else. Even now, still work for free. So we'll make a pilot for free. We'll shoot something for a charity for free. We do stuff for free all the time because it's a great advert for what you can do. Sometimes when you're working for a client or you're working to a brief, you got to give them what they want. If you're working for free and you're doing something, you can be a bit more expressive with it sometimes, think outside the box a little bit. So we always do stuff for free.
Dani?
I've got a well funny story. So one of my most exciting projects that ever came to me was like a slow burn moment where So I'm a massive dork, obviously, and I was on a software forum years ago telling people how to make things or helping people or answering questions, and some guy posted something that was like, oh, this is broken, why does this not work? And I was like, oh no, and I recorded myself performing the action that he was asking about and said, like, this is how you do it in this software, it's a bit like this in this software, huge dork hi. And so we followed each other on social media. That guy ended up being or becoming the animation director for one of my all-time favorite cartoons ever, and then randomly recommended me, because we stayed in a little bit in touch just like through social media, for another gig that I got to work for Seth Green making a pilot that he'd written. And it was the most random connection and job that's ever fallen into my inbox, and it was just because I was nice to someone once on a software forum. So just be a nice guy.
The social media is such a powerful tool. Also be safe on there as well. I think it's important to say. But yeah, in terms of, networking and connecting with people in your industry and doing the jobs that you want to do as well, I think it's really good. And just reaching out and just sending a friendly, like you say, being nice, dropping them a DM is a good way to go. It's a good way to start, I think.
If you watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger 3-parter on Netflix, he says, keep busy, be useful.
Yeah, that's a great documentary. Everyone should check that out. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question because we've still got quite a bit to get through. How many employees did you have when you started your company? So this is probably one for Daniel and Toby.
0.
Yeah.
I wasn't even an employee at my company when we started. So at some point, like, we were doing stuff, and then you kind of make a decision on what does the company need, and for us with EatSleep Media, it was to hire an employee. So the first employee at EatSleep Media wasn't any of the directors; it was a filmmaker, and I actually become an employee last month, after however many years. So yeah, you always start with 0 employees, unless you come from a background where people are throwing money at you, which I don't. I'm from Newport, so I started with 0.
How many do you have now?
We've got, I think there's 11 or 12 of us at the moment. And we were up to 18 between January and March, between freelancers and employees. But I think, yeah, there's 11, 12 of us at the moment.
But you started with none, so
yeah. Every company starts with 0. If all of a sudden you're starting a business that got 10 employees, then you need to tell me how to do it. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like you start with we started with no money in the bank, no clients, no employees, no equipment. Like, started with absolutely nothing. So yeah, I think if you've already got employees, you've done something different to us.
And Toby, how many for you?
Yeah, I started the business with 2 friends, and it was 3 of us, but so we were the employees, but we weren't employing anyone. Yeah, I think probably after 2 or 3 years, we were like, oh great, we need this, and we got someone in. But now we just hired, including me, there's 6 of us. We just hired the 6th. Yeah.
Okay.
After 13 years, it's not like we've grown massively, but we've, that's kind of our model, is not to have a huge payroll bill, like as soon as Daniel's saying he's got like 10 or 11 people, I'm like racking up the salaries in my brain.
Yeah, the amount of work you've got to find on a monthly basis then jumps up.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's different type of companies, especially in this industry. Some companies are a couple of people and then they hire on a job by job basis. So a freelancer comes in for a day, a week, a month. What we try to do at EatSleep Media is kind of bring in a team that have got sustainable jobs, and then try and find creative opportunities for them to do things that maybe they would have opportunities to do as a freelancer. So we're trying to find that kind of balance between the two. But yeah, the more people you've got, the more money you need to make on a monthly basis. So the kind of the bigger the impetus is to keep the work coming in. So it's a different level of kind of management and stress.
Yeah. And the next question follows on quite nicely. How do you find freelancers for your network? I know there's like Talent Manager and the places like that. Is there anything else that people need to find you guys? What's the best approach?
We don't use anything like Talent Manager. It's all
Okay.
network. So people that we've worked with before, people that we know, it's all recommendations and kind of connections and network for us. We really kind of put out the freelance opportunity, kind of looking for people. It's usually amongst our team, because we're all kind of worked in the industry for a lot of us have worked in the industry for a number of years. Some are kind of newer, but kind of those experienced ones. Who have we worked with before? Who's a good fit? Who gets our ethos as a business and would kind of fit in well here, or fit in for this project, or bring something interesting to the table.
Okay. And how do newbies kind of reach out to you if they're not known by you?
We've got a website, contact details are on there. Kind of quite often we get people send stuff over, and they're university students or graduates looking for work experience or opportunities, or they're kind of freelancers just saying, hey, hi guys, this is me, this is what I do, like your stuff. Kind of check me out if you ever need anything. And we'll always have a scan through that, see what sort of person is there, and whether there's an opportunity, and kind of keep those interesting kind of contacts to one side, maybe follow up with a conversation, see if there's an opportunity to work together.
Okay, great. And is it similar for yourself, Toby?
Yeah, it's generally recommendations from other people, or you desperately, you need that role fulfilled. So you'll go around to your network and you say, do you know this do you know this type of person? Da, da, da. And then I'm not going to lie, it's like once you've built up a relationship with someone, you do try and stick with them because they're reliable. So it's kind of annoying for the other people, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you're a good freelancer, you only need like a handful of like good companies to work with, or clients, and then they'll keep giving you work over and over and over again, because they know that you're reliable, you'll do the job properly, and you're not going to mess it up. And that's the main thing you think when you're hiring anyone. It's like, can I trust them to do this job? So that's why recommendations are always great. But LinkedIn's quite good. I always used to be like, well, I don't get LinkedIn. I get it more now, and I'm using it a lot more. And, you can see recommendations there quite clearly, and people have recommended and see their work and stuff like that. We get emails all the time, and I try my best if people are give, like a nice email that's like, not, can I have some work, which is like, can I meet you? I like this of this and trying to do this. And at the bare minimum, it's like, oh, thanks, let's keep chatting, or let's grab a coffee or something like that. So I think it's actually sometimes best not to email someone saying, can I have a job, or can you give me work? Because it's kind of like, you're kind of, if it's a no, you're ending the conversation, but if it's like, oh, can I understand a bit more about you guys, or about how you work, or, I like this, and, I'm just trying to get a few tips. I find that I'm more likely to respond to, because I feel like I'm helping someone, opposed to saying no. And, like once it's a no, it's hard to move forward. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to move on to, how do you set your rates, Dani? I'll give this question to you.
Oh.
Yeah. How does one decide?
How big's your budget, Danielle?
First question, always the first question. What's your budget?
So number one, first question is, well, what's the rate that you have set aside for this role? Or actually, lately I've started to be a bit more proactive about that, and I practice saying my day rate out loud in the mirror, so that when it comes out, it sounds natural, and it sounds like something that I say all the time and is true. And that's a tip that I tell mentees as well. Like, when you're first starting out, when you don't quite know, but like sounding confident really does help. And if it's not what they have anyway, it's not a no, and it's not a trap, it's a negotiation anyway. So there's always going to be like what's that word, a range a range that you can fall between and still feel comfortable, or still come away with an agreement. When I first started out, I figured out what my survival rate would be. So like, what does it cost to keep Dani Abram on Earth alive, fed? And then tried to hit that for my first month. It was something like £800 to keep me alive. So that doesn't sound so scary. When you're first starting out, you think, okay, my rent's, this is a long time ago, but my rent's $450. I could cover that maybe. You're like, what's that? One job, 1 week, what would that take? And then I've just built up from there. Like, the more confidence I gain in saying my day rate out loud in the mirror, the higher the number goes. And now there is, if like mentees come to me, I'll do like mock interviews with them to just say like, let's hear you say it. Let's hear you say it. And then you know what you won't fall between as well, like what you won't fall under for the survival rate, and then what you actually want, and like somewhere in the middle is where you're going to end up. And I used to feel like you're going to say the number and then they're going to never contact you ever again and you'll never work ever again because it was too high. But that has never once happened to me. There has always been a follow-up. This is actually what rate we've got set aside for this. Nowadays, I'm like, nah, go on. Nah, they'll be somewhere else. So I'll go back again.
Back on the sofa, see what else you can find.
So I go back to them and answer that email with like, oh, okay, but I'd be willing to do it for this much. Like if you're expecting this and this from me, that would make me happy. How would you feel about that? And it's like, I wonder what my record is from like how many times I ask for a different number. I'm not sure. Usually wrapped up in like 1 or 2 emails. Do you want to know the number? Is the question asking what the number is? I'm suddenly come across so coy.
I think everything's scalable as well, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's your budget and what do you want? And we kind of usually say that, what do you want? What's your budget? Okay, for that, we could do something like this. Do you know what I mean? So you're kind of, what do you want? What money have you got? What can we do? Because what you don't want to do is kind of go in there and go, we could do this and 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 we could do this. And they go, oh, fantastic. We love all of that. And you go, great. And there's a proposal for 100 grand. And they go, oh, we only got 2 grand to spend. That becomes a very difficult conversation to get out of. And I used to work for someone who used to pitch that way and everything was uncomfortable from there. Because if you ask, what's your budget? What do you want? Let's have a think about it and see what ideas we can come up with. That becomes more of a fruitful relationship and conversation because they've said what they wanted, and you might be able to go, oh, they're asking for that, but actually that would probably work for them, and that's a bit more efficient. And yeah, you don't want to send 10 people out on a shoot for a small amount of money, but we could do a little bit of this. So yeah, everything's a negotiation.
Great. There's some really good tips there. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much to our brilliant panel and for the brilliant questions. I'm so sorry we haven't been able to get through all of them. I just wanted to say, you know, this is a really exciting time, I think, in your career when you decide to go freelance. And obviously there's ups and downs, as our great panelists have said, but it's also something to enjoy, you know, feel the fear and you know, go with it anyway, as they say. So thank you all so much. And yeah, I guess you can find you guys maybe on Twitter. Is that have you guys all got Twitter accounts or anything like that if you want to keep up and see what you guys are up to, or check out your websites? If you want to give them a plug now, you can.
Mine's daniabram.co.uk. Toby?
Yeah, you'll find me on Twitter. It's probably better to follow On Par, my company. So On Par Productions. I can't remember the exact handles, but I think if you search that in Twitter or Instagram, you'll find us quite quickly. And LinkedIn as well. If any of you are on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me. I feel like that's a really nice way to sort of follow people's careers because it's just work. And I find, yeah, I'm actually weirdly using that more than any other social media at the moment. Oh my God, I feel like my dad.
I know, I'm same. It's gone well good suddenly.
LinkedIn's a good place to add me, and then www.eatsleep.media is the website for EatSleep Media, and you can see lots of what we do, and that will kind of point you to all the social media handles as well.
Thank you so much for watching this BFI Film Academy Lab session on going freelance and setting up your production company. We run monthly live digital labs, and we'd love to see you at our next event on Monday, 17th July. It will be all about project development and telling authentic stories. To find out more about this session, visit our lab's webpage, which you can find in the video's YouTube description, and follow Film Academy on our social channels. Thank you, and see you next time.